day320 of reading. Today reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Let's get started. Today reading, we are on page 670. 6-7. Bet you're not feeling quite, let's go. Bet you're not feeling quite as full of yourself now Cedric's caught you up on points, are you? What? Said Harry. Ignore him, said Cedric in a low voice to Harry, frowning after his father. He's been angry ever since Rita Skeeter's article about the Triwizard Tournament, you know, when she made out you were the only Hogwarts champion. Didn't bother to correct her, though, did he? Said Amos Diggory, loudly enough for Harry to hear as he started to walk out of the door with Mrs. Weasley and Bill. Still, you'll show him, said. Beat him once before, haven't you? Rita Skeeter goes out of her way to cause trouble, Amos, Mrs. Weasley said angrily. I would have thought you'd know that, working at the ministry. Mr. Diggory looked as though he was going to say something angry, but his wife laid a hand on his arm, and he merely shrugged and turned away. Harry had a very enjoyable morning walking over the sunny grounds with Bill and Mrs. Weasley, showing them the Buckspannon's carriage and the Durmstrang's ship. Mrs. Weasley was intrigued by the Whomping Willow, which had been planted after she had left the school, and reminisced about the gamekeeper before Hagrid, a man called Og. How's Percy? Harry asked as they walked around the greenhouses. Not good, said Bill. He's very upset, said Mrs. Weasley, lowering her voice and glancing around. The ministry wants to keep Mr. Crouch's disappearance quiet, but Percy's been hauled in for questioning about the instruction Mr. Crouch had been sending in. They think there's a chance that they weren't genuinely written by him. Percy's been under a lot of strain. They're not letting him fill in for Mr. Crouch as the 5th judge tonight. Cornelius Fudge is going to be doing it. They returned to the castle for lunch. Mom, Bill, said Ron, looking stunned as he joined the Gryffindor table. What are you doing here? Come to watch Harry in the last task, said Mrs. Weasley brightly. I must say, it makes a lovely change, not having to cook. How was your exam? Oh, okay, said Ron. Couldn't remember all the Goblin Rebels' names, so I invented a few. It's all right, he said, helping himself to Cornish pastry while Mrs. Weasley looked stern. They're all called stuff like Bodrud or Bearded and Urg the Unclean. It wasn't hard. Fred, George, and Ginny came to sit next to them, too. Harry was having such a good time he felt almost as though he were back at the Burrow. He had forgotten to worry about the evening's task, and not until Hermione turned up halfway through lunch did he remember that she had a brainwave about Rita Skeeter. Are you going to tell us? Hermione shook her head warningly and glanced at Mrs. Weasley. Hello, Hermione, said Mrs. Weasley, much more stiffly than usual. Hello, said Hermione, her smile faltering at the cold expression on Mrs. Weasley's face. Harry looked between them, then said, Mrs. Weasley, you didn't believe that rubbish Rita Skeeter wrote in the Witch Weekly, did you? Because Hermione's not my girlfriend. Oh, said Mrs. Weasley. No, of course I didn't. But she became considerably warmer toward Hermione after that. Harry, Bill, and Mrs. Weasley whiled away the afternoon with a long walk around the castle and then returned to the Great Hall for the evening feast. Little Bagman and Cornelius Fudge had joined the staff table now. Bagman looked quite cheerful, but Cornelius Fudge, who was sitting next to Madame Maxime, looked stern and was not talking. Madame Maxime was concentrating on her plate, and Harry thought her eyes looked red. Hagrid kept glancing along the table at her. There were more courses than usual, but Harry, who was starting to feel really nervous now, didn't eat much. As the enchanted ceiling overhead began to fade from blue to a dusky purple, Dumbledore rose to his feet at the staff table, and a silence fell. Ladies and gentlemen, in 5 minutes' time, I will be asking you to make your way down to the Quidditch field for the 3rd and final task of the Triwizard Tournament. Will the champions please follow Mr. Bagman down to the stadium now? Harry got up. The Gryffindors all along the table were applauding him. The Weasleys and Hermione all wished him good luck, and he headed off out of the Great Hall with Cedric, Fleur, and Victor. "Feeling all right, Harry?" Bagman asked as they went down the steps onto the grounds. "Confident?" "I'm okay," said Harry. It was sort of true. He was nervous, but he kept running over all the hexes and spells he had been practicing in his mind as they walked, and the knowledge that he could remember them all made him feel better. They walked onto the Quidditch field, which was now completely unrecognizable. A 20-foot-high hedge ran all the way around the edge of it. There was a gap right in front of them, the entrance to the vast maze. The passage beyond it looked dark and creepy. 5 minutes later, the stands had begun to fill. The air was full of excited voices and the rumbling of feet as the hundreds of students filed into their seats. The sky was a deep, clear blue now, and the first stars were starting to appear. Hagrid, Professor Moody, Professor McGonagall, and Professor Flitwick came walking into the stadium and approached Bagman and the champions. They were all wearing large red luminous stars on their hats, all except Hagrid, who had his on the back of his moleskin vest. "We are going to be patrolling the outside of the maze," said Professor McGonagall to the champions. "If you get into difficulty and wish to be rescued, send red sparks into the air, and one of us will come and get you. Do you understand?" The champions nodded. "Off you go, then," said Bagman brightly to the 4 patrollers. "Good luck, Harry," Hagrid whispered, and the 4 of them walked away in 4 different directions to station themselves around the maze. Bagman now pointed his wand at his throat, muttered "Sonorous," and his magically magnified voice echoed into the stands. "Ladies and gentlemen, the third and final task of the Triwizard Tournament is about to begin. Let me remind you how the points currently stand. Tied in first place with 85 points each, Mr. Cedric Diggory and Mr. Harry Potter, both of Hogwarts School. The cheers and applause sent birds from the Forbidden Forest fluttering into the darkening sky. In second place, with 80 points, Mr. Victor Crumb of Durmstrang Institute. More applause. And in third place, Miss Fleur Delacour of Bookspaddin's Academy. Harry could just make out Mrs. Weasley, Bill, Ron, and Hermione applauding Fleur politely. Halfway up the stands, he waved up at them, and they waved back, beaming at him. "So on my whistle, Harry and Cedric," said Bagman. 3, 2, 1. He gave a short blast on his whistle, and Harry and Cedric hurried forward into the maze. The towering hedges cast black shadows across the path, and whether because they were so tall and thick or because they had been enchanted, the sound of the surrounding crowd was silenced the moment they entered the maze. Harry felt almost as though he were underwater again. He pulled out his wand, muttered "Lumos," and heard Cedric do the same just behind him. After about 50 yards, they reached a fork. They looked at each other. "See you," Harry said, and he took the left one while Cedric took the right. Harry heard Bagman's whistle for the second time. Crumb had entered the maze. Harry sped up. His chosen path seemed completely deserted. He turned right and hurried on, holding his... Thank you, everyone. That's all for today. Bye. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to read page 622. Bookmark, close. Peace out. 6-7.